Prime Minister Mark Carney just faced one of the toughest press conferences of his career in London, UK, and he didn't back down. Reporters pressed him on everything from Donald Trump's tariff threats to Canada's role in Ukraine and even the Middle East. Carney came out swinging. This wasn't routine diplomacy. It was Carney's message to the world: Canada is done playing defense. We're no longer waiting on Washington. Canada will set its own course. The turning point came during one of the most dramatic moments of the conference. When a reporter accused him of jetting around the world but achieving nothing, Carney delivered a blunt and fiery rebuttal.
Jeremy Sharon, CTV News. Conservatives say you are jetting around but getting nothing done. You've met with numerous leaders while you've been here, but you're not signing a new deal or making, announcing a new partnership. What have you achieved tangibly for Canadians during this trip?
Yeah, look, there's a couple things, Jeremy. One is that, and I would look at what we've done over the course of the last 10 days in Mexico, in New York, in Ottawa, in London. Major trade deal with the fourth largest population economy in the world, Indonesia, a country that's on track to be the fifth largest economy in the world over the next 2 decades. The first major trade deal for that country with Canada. It's comprehensive, signed. A deepening of the partnership with Mexico. Very specific set of objectives that are going to be, and partnerships that are going to be tracked and built on over the course of the next 3, 6, 9 months, consistent with the review of CUSMA with the United States, crucial. Prime Minister Starmer and I agreed a series of economic and security measures back in June. This meeting was designed to go through progress on those measures, make sure we're on track on everything from digital to agriculture, and that the defense cooperation and security cooperation arrangements are lining up, also to coordinate strategies on Ukraine, on the Middle East. The meetings in in New York and here, and Ottawa for that matter, with the past, current, and future presidents of the European Union are necessary to help translate the agreements in June with the European Union, the framework agreements for opening up further market access in Europe, including in digital, and those defense partnerships which are crucial for driving our economy forward. That's to make sure that those agreements translate into the action and the detail there.
That exchange set the tone. Carney made it clear he wouldn't allow critics to dismiss Canada's global role. But the real flashpoint came later, when the discussion turned to Donald Trump's new tariff threats. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Would Carney cave to US pressure, or would he stand his ground? His answer left no doubt.
Prime Minister Catherine Cullen, host of CBC's The House. We may be in London, but I've got a question about the United States, sir. It's
That's fine.
unescapable.
Yeah.
Why didn't you communicate to Canadians that you were fully dropping non-sectoral retaliatory tariffs? So not just CUSMA-compliant goods, but non-CUSMA-compliant goods. Also, if you have any thoughts about how Donald Trump's latest threats for tariffs on furniture and pharmaceuticals are likely to affect Canada.
The first question is a rounding error. The CUSMA compliant, no, come on. The CUSMA compliant is, for example, for Canada, it's more than 97% is CUSMA compliant. It's effectively the same thing. It's just more straightforward. We did it that way. The classes of goods, there are classes of goods where we did keep retaliatory tariffs on related to 232 tariffs, for example, on steel. And aspects of autos. We are one of very few countries that still have retaliatory tariffs on with the U.S. because in those areas we are engaged in negotiations, first point. With respect to the announcements, form of announcements in the last 24 hours. As you know, but just to make clear, we haven't seen any of the detail of those announcements. There's no executive order. There's no formality yet around those announcements. So I hesitate to be too conclusive about what I say. I would note on pharmaceuticals that the vast majority, what the announcement suggested, the Truth Social post suggested, was with respect to patented pharmaceuticals. The vast majority of Canadian pharmaceutical exports to the United States are generic pharmaceuticals, so on the face of it, would not be affected by this. In addition, there was a distinction between companies that are building or plan to build plants in the United States, and many of the producers in Canada have operations in the United States. They're global companies, they have activities. So in both of those respects, the actual application of that pharmaceutical tariff, which admittedly is very high at 100%, could be.
After tackling Trump and trade, Carney pivoted to the bigger picture: Canada's place in a world on fire. On Ukraine, he emphasized Canada's frontline role in training soldiers, reminding the world that Canada isn't just an observer, it's a leader. On trade, he highlighted agreements with the European Union, Mexico, and Indonesia as proof that Canada is diversifying and building new corridors of growth. Through it all, the message was unmistakable: Canada is no longer a bystander in global affairs. We are taking the hits, shaping the debates, and standing tall in the face of uncertainty.
Now, the world is undergoing a number of fundamental shifts that are challenging all of those premises. New technologies have brought distant threats to our doorstep. Power has become multipolar. Authoritarianism is resurgent, and consensus within many democracies has fractured. This is not a slow transition, it's a rupture. And the mission of our new government is to ensure that Canada will not just be able to endure the impact of these shifts, but to prosper through them. In the first 4 months, we cut taxes on incomes for more than 22 million Canadians. We cut taxes on capital gains. We removed all federal barriers to interprovincial trade in a move towards one Canadian economy. We passed landmark legislation to fast-track major projects in energy, artificial intelligence, critical minerals, and trade infrastructure to new markets. We've launched Build Canada Homes to help double the pace of home building, building at a pace not seen in Canada since the end of the Second World War. This week, we launched the second phase of those negotiations. Last week in Mexico, I worked with President Sheinbaum to launch a new Canada-Mexico action plan to build fresh economic opportunities for our workers and businesses. Earlier this week, the President of Indonesia and I announced Canada's first ever bilateral trade deal with an ASEAN country, reducing or eliminating tariffs on 95% of current Canadian exports to Indonesia. Et cet automne, nous allons lancer la nouvelle stratégie de diversification commerciale du Canada pour renforcer nos relations actuelles et ouvrir de nouveaux marchés aux entreprises canadiennes, en particulier en Asie. Yesterday, I met with the Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom, of Australia, of Spain, and Iceland. We discussed deepening defense cooperation to enhance our collective security.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Morning.
Lydia Stefanovich, CBC News. How has U.S. President Donald Trump's apparent backing of a Ukraine victory changed the calculus of the coalition of the willing, if at all? And specifically, what I'd like to know is whether this will make the coalition bolder, such as deploying trainers without a ceasefire. Is that in the cards?
The last part of your question, sorry, the deploying...
Trainers without a ceasefire.
Well, okay, so let me answer the last part and then to the broader. Canada is one of the leading trainers of, trainers you said, yes, training Ukrainian troops. We are one of the leading trainers of Ukrainian troops. We work closely, in fact, it's something I discussed with the Prime Minister Starmer. We work alongside our UK colleagues in doing that. We will continue to do that. In a ceasefire, not your question, but in a ceasefire situation, one of the most important things will be to scale up that activity even more, because the first line of defense will be a reinforced Ukrainian army, regardless of the nature of the ceasefire or any peace agreement. So that's the first point. The second, to go to your broader question, We very much welcome President Trump's position, as we have welcomed his engagement from the start in this conflict. He's played, as usual, a decisive role in shaping potential outcomes to the concept. We have been clear from the start, as a member of the Coalition of the Willing, well, Canada will do our bit, that ultimately some form of U.S. backstop to any security guarantee of Ukraine that is provided by the Coalition of the Willing will be.
This London press conference wasn't just about answering reporters. It was about sending a message to allies, adversaries, and Canadians at home. Canada will not be pushed around. Carney's words were fiery, at times confrontational, but they revealed the core of his strategy: build at home, diversify abroad, and never again let Canada's prosperity depend on decisions made in Washington. The old world order is over. A new one is emerging, and Carney is determined to put Canada at its center. This is Canada Today. Subscribe now for sharp, fact-driven analysis of Canada's changing role in the world.